go. So I'll open it up now.
Best of everything, guys. I'll give you the remote, I forgot, just in case, even though I'll
Sounds good.
yeah, even though we will I guess we should start, and then hopefully once the introductions are done, maybe somebody, you know, they'll still catch up. Also, I will, and you, Afshan, if we see more and more people arriving, perhaps we can just let them know throughout that it's being recorded.
Sure,
they won't
sounds good.
Yeah. All righty then. Please note that we will be recording this session, and later it will be posted on the TDSB website. We just want to introduce ourselves and welcome you to Learning at Home, Building Routines for a Virtual World. My name is Yvonne Wyndham, and I'm a speech language pathologist that works within TDSB.
Hello, everyone. My name is Afshan Siddiqui, and I am a psychologist with the school board.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Lay. I am a physiotherapist with the TDSB. I'm going to be your moderator for the session, and I'll be monitoring the chat room as well. So please feel free to leave any questions that you may have. I'll do my best to answer you all. We will also try to reserve some time for later on in the meeting at the end for some questions as well. And I will be popping in periodically to do some polls as well, but I'll pass the torch on to Afshan and Yvonne. Take it away, ladies.
No problem. So I'm just going to go over the agenda for today. We're packing a lot of information into roughly about 45 minutes or so. So we're going to talk about, just so we're all on the same page, what a routine actually is, why it's important. Then we're going to show you how you can establish routines. And we'll also show you within this new world of ours, how you can establish routines for virtual learning by using specific tools that can help you to keep the routine going as well. Also visual tools and physical and mental health. How do we get that going? How do we maintain that in this new world of ours? And as we go through this, try to picture yourself doing this with your own children and even yourself as an adult. A lot of these tips are good for us as well. So
Yvonne, I guess the next section is for us to learn about routines a little bit and why they are so important.
Thanks for mentioning that, Afshan. Basically, a routine it's a habit. It's a habit that's formed by consistently repeating the same thing. So sometimes we have different things that we do that are can be considered to be a routine at home. I'm just going to give you a second to just think about what routines that you might do. What activities do you repeat every day? Feel free to just write a couple of things. I won't spend a lot of time on it for Jocelyn to have a look at, and you can let me know. I'll literally just take the first one or two answers if anyone has put anything in the chat for us. So what are some of the routines that you might do? What activities do you repeat every day?
We've still got some quiet folks in the audience.
I'll bet you some of these will ring a bell with you. Some examples of routines, things that we do almost every day, I should hope. Brushing your teeth, showers, meal times, bedtimes, all that usual stuff, the chores we do around the house. But sometimes there are other activities that you might not consider to be that sort of routine. These are the ones that you usually come to mind. With other parents that we've done this with, this would be the sort of thing that they would mention. But you know what else counts as a routine? Different things like just cooking, sharing a
Which
book.
I hate.
And she knows I love that. So I do to put a routine in. I actually sometimes will give my kids a sort of menu, a buffet of things that they can choose from, and they'll tell me what it was that they would like for the week or whatever. But there are other things that you might not consider that once we show you how to establish a routine, you might think about putting that in. So even something like just how you get dressed in the morning or undressing in the evening can be considered as being part of a routine. So just to warm you up a little bit, so we're not constantly talking at you, I'm going to ask Jocelyn to get those shy people to do something that's really harmless. We're not going to harm you with this next piece.
Thank you, Yvonne. So I'm just going to launch one of our polls just to get an idea of who our audience members are today. So if you could just let us know whether your children are attending schools in person, virtually, if you've got multiple children who may be attending both, or alternately none of the above, it would just give us a good indication as to who we have in the room. I'll give you guys a minute. That's great. Thank you for all of you who participated. So it seems like we do have a lot of attendees that have their children in virtual school, and then a bit of both as well. So that's great. Thank you. The next poll that I wanted to share, just again, another question just to get an idea of how old your children are for all of our guests here today. I'll give you all a minute to answer that as well. That's great. Thank you for all of you who have participated. And it looks like the majority of you have children who are in elementary school. So thank you for that. And then lastly, we were just, sorry, I've got two more. This one here, just wanted to ask whether there were any of you who attended the Parents as Partners webinar that we hosted in August as well. It seems like a lifetime ago, so you may have forgotten whether you attended or not. That's great. Thank you to everyone that's voted. I'll shut that one down. And it seems like most of you did not attend. I'm sure you guys were all just thinking about summer activities. So some of this information will be quite new to you. And then for those of you who did attend, thank you for returning. But we will have more information to share with you, so hang tight. And then our last poll, just curious to get an idea of what sort of strategies or ideas or ways have you used to try to set up routines in your home with your family? You know, whether you've used pictures, whether you use to-do lists, alarms, rewards, or motivators, involving children in decisions, consistency. I'll give you some time to vote. This one's requires a bit more thinking than the other ones. That's great. Thank you, everyone. Keep voting. I see you all logging in there. Okay, that's wonderful. Thanks for your feedback. So it seems like to-do lists are quite popular, followed by a close second of consistency for sure. So we will be talking about more strategies and more ideas and ways that you can help to integrate routines in your child's day within this presentation, and then I'll come back at the end. So at this point in time, I'll just ask that you close the poll out of your screen and bring your attention back to Afshan and Yvonne, and they will take you through the rest of this talk.
Great. So why we think routines are very important and why we've actually put this together for you is because most children will thrive if the environment that they're in is predictable, if they know what's coming next, if they have a consistent way of being, if you like, with whether it's at school or home or a social situation. The more predictable the routine, the better they're going to have structure and also a sense of control over what's happening. Because right now, none of us have control over this craziness that's going on with the pandemic. So this,
it's definitely chaotic. The world is chaos. So daily routines are definitely a way to go to have that structure.
Absolutely. And if you do that, if you can get routines going with your children, it's going to actually help to reduce their stress, because a lot of people are stressed right now, and hopefully make them less anxious. It will also help them to feel a little more confident, you know, knowing what they're going to be doing next, what they're doing right, what they should be doing right now. And it will also foster independence. So a lot of what we're doing, you could start with your child and do a lot of you know, maintaining or co-establishing, all of that thing, sort of doing it together in a collaborative way. But I would also encourage that you phase your part out. No matter how young the child is, they can learn how to, you know, take a bit more control over what they're supposed to be doing. So it's good to sort of phase it out if you can. And the last little piece that I would emphasize, out of many different reasons why routines are really important, it actually supports the learning of new skills. So there's a lot of research to show that it's going to have an impact on their academic skills and impact on their social skills and even just life skills in general. So you can start early and really lay down that foundation. And these are just a few, right, Afshan? We've
Absolutely. There's so many more. Yeah. But we can't cover it all, even though we like to talk, apparently.
Very quickly on that tip, we can't emphasize enough that it does, you know, establishing routines can help children with their language and learning. It helps them to know how their world is organized, so they know, oh, after I get up, I get dressed, I brush my teeth, etc., etc. And even using specific words to describe what they're doing can also help to build up their language skills, the vocabulary. Little things like following step-by-step instructions, like, oh, now you have to put on this and do this and go on to the next piece, will help them even within their school life. And I will tell you, as Afshan and Jocelyn and I were joking later, it has helped me with the putting things together like IKEA. So there you go. So started early and even experiencing natural consequences. So sometimes we may not even have to discipline our child or do whatever because they didn't follow the schedule or the routine, and because of that something may have happened to them that was unexpected or in their minds even negative because they didn't follow that particular piece. But all of that will help them academically and socially as well, and we'll show later even mentally. All right, so can't keep emphasizing enough around why routines are great. Giving a routine is also going to help children with their sensory input, and it also helps with self-regulation because we interact with our world through the way we are in terms of our sensory systems, right? So Afshan and I, we also say, I'm not sure what yours is yet, Jocelyn, but we tend to interact with our world in a much more visual way. So I need visuals. You tell me how to get to your house or to a restaurant or whatever. I wouldn't do it if you just tell me through my ear, the hearing way. I would have to see a map. I'd have to know a little bit more before I can actually get there. So that's how I learn. I learn a lot more visually. Some here learn more by hearing, or they're more connected in that way. Smell is also a way for us to interact with our world. Taste, touch, movement, kinesthesia, and inner feelings. And very quickly, I would say, we were talking, Afshan, my son would be connect with his world more with movement. That's the way he sort of takes things in. What about yours, Afshan?
I think he's more of a visual learner as well, just like me. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in this case.
I am a movement learner, just like your son, Yvonne, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and by doing that, you can actually help your children to develop their self-advocacy skills. So for instance, my son would actually tell his teacher as he moved on through the grades and got to high school, he'd say, do you mind giving me a movement break, or can I take something to the office for you? And that was his way of signaling to them that he needed to move. And then when he came back, he was more focused again because he got that sort of movement piece to help break up the momentum a little bit. So he actually got the teacher to schedule that in, to put that within his routine. And we can do the same as parents. We can look at the way our children interact with the world and see what it is that helps them to connect a little bit better. Just something for you to consider. And also looking at what I've just said, if I summarize that and ask you to do a couple of takeaways from my little bit, I would tell you that using routines should be an integral and very important part of your child's life, because it's going to help them to reduce their stress and their anxiety. It's going to help them with their language and learning skills. And again, it's going to give them a sensory input. It's going to promote their self-regulation. And you're going to learn things about them, but they're also going to learn things about themselves as well that they can use to make themselves a little more self-aware of how they are in the world. So Afshan, how do you actually, now I've told you about what a routine is, why it's important, how do you actually establish a routine? I'd love you to.
So yeah, so I'm going to walk us through this process. And if you were at the webinar in August, you may remember this information, but it might also not be new to many of you who didn't attend, but it's nice to have a refresher about how we can kind of lay out our routines and get them going, especially if we've had like a long break like we did over the spring and summer. So you would want to start with some small familiar life skill activities that your children know and can do well. So here in our example, we have the morning wake up routine, right? And then the next thing you want to do is just try to make the routines as interactive as possible. Particularly when your children are learning new skills, because they won't know all of the components of what you're asking them to do, right? So Yvonne shared her experience with her son earlier about how just the morning breakfast routine, he would get the cereal, but then she would help him pour the milk, right? So just making it interactive, especially when they aren't what they have to do or they haven't learned that skill. Okay, the next thing we want is for you to include some choice in your routine. So you would give your children choices. So something like when they wake up in the morning, they can make their bed or maybe help you make breakfast, right? And giving them these choices can really make them more willing to participate in new routines because they feel like they're more in control of what they're being asked to do, right? So you're still structuring what the activities are, but they have a voice in what takes place. So if I just asked, I know, especially when my son was younger, if I just asked him, okay, do you want to do whatever it is that I wanted him to do, he might just have said, no, I don't want to do that, right? But if I gave him a choice, okay, do you want to read this book or do you want to go on a walk with me? Then those are options where he's still putting his input in, he's still feeling in control over what's happening in his life. But I'm still the one kind of structuring what's happening. Okay. And in terms of structuring, you can either structure the activities that you're asking your children to do or when the activities will be done. So for example, you could ask them to choose between washing the dishes or helping to take out the garbage. Alternatively, you could ask them to choose when they're going to be doing a task, right? So are you going to do your homework before dinner or are you going to do it after dinner? So it's still getting done, but they're kind of giving you their input of when it's happening. Next, it's important that you incorporate some short breaks into your routines. When we incorporate the breaks, especially if they have, so take, for example, their homework routine. If they've been in school all day and now they're having to sit and do homework, it can be a long period of time just sitting and focusing, and it can get really difficult. And there is kind of like a maximum time where you can kind of really be focused and on task, right? And then you need a break. We all need those breaks. So just allowing them breaks when they're needed, and they can be short, they don't have to be really lengthy, just enough time for them to move or stretch. And you can also give them a visual timer so they can keep track of how long they're taking those breaks. But it is important that they do complete the tasks that they are being asked to do when the break is over, so that they're not just using breaks as a way of getting out of doing things. For kids who may have more difficulty communicating when they need a break, you can consider using things like a visual signal, a sign language, a gesture, just so that they can let you know when it's, they've kind of had enough of whatever they're doing.
And I would also say it's a two-way. So sometimes children don't understand when they need a break or whatever. So you may need to use the visual or the sign language to get them to understand that
Mm-hmm.
it's time or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially when they're younger, they may not even realize that, oh, I need a break, right? So teaching that skill will be important as well, for sure. Okay, so next we would like you to try to use some motivators to help encourage your children to complete tasks. When it, Using motivators is a really good way to help kind of change behavior, and it doesn't just apply to kids, right? We all work for something at times as well. When we don't want to do something, it's kind of hard to be motivated to do it. But if we can somehow reward ourselves for doing something that we don't want to do, then it makes it easier to complete the less preferred task. So I know that we earlier were talking about, exercising and then having some chocolate after, right? So,
My motivator.
yeah.
I also work very hard for chocolate as well.
Yeah. So chocolate seems to be a really popular motivator. Maybe not so much for kids. We'll see what some parents might think a little bit later, but definitely for us, it looks like. But yeah, so an easy way to kind of incorporate motivators into your routine is to kind of use the first then type of technique. So the first is a task that you're asking your children to do. So something that they might not necessarily want to. And then the then is something that they're working for. So it's not just the next thing on the to-do list or on the schedule. It is something that they would like. And another way to do this is through the use of a token board or reward chart. So, once they get, say, 5 stickers or whatever, then they get, I don't know, tab or you choose the movie that the family gets, something like that, right? And we do have some ideas for motivators, and they don't have to be like tangible items like that, here's this toy that you get if you do this task. It could be as simple as just, alone time with a parent, because sometimes if there are lots of kids in the house, maybe it is difficult to give some more directed attention to one particular child. So that could be something that could be motivating, right? Also, just encouragement and praise and validation of their efforts could be a really great motivator as well, especially to help them internalize some of that. So instead of saying something like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," maybe saying something more along the lines of, "You worked really hard, and you must be so proud of yourself." So kind of putting it on them, right? So they are the ones feeling proud.
And often describing the thing it is that they did. So it might be writing, instead of saying just good job, it would be, good writing, or,
Exactly.
whatever it is, being
Yep.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you used a lot of motivators at home a
I,
lot?
I have, perhaps it's a genetic thing, but certainly work for food.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of our kids like technology. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
would use that. But even just fun things. My kids liked a lot of physical stuff, so that they would work for that as well. It definitely worked to sort of put it in the routine that,
Yeah.
and to use it as a reinforcer to get
Yep.
them to, yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, my son too, technology is a big thing with him. And lately it's been an allowance for taking out garbage. So.
I like that
um,
style.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're establishing or building your routines, don't forget to include some time for fun or wellness types of activities. Also, it's really important that you're consistent with your routines. Research has shown that it takes about an average of 66 days or so for a behavior to really become more automatic. And that's kind of like the goal, right? So we don't want to be thinking about every step in terms of brushing our teeth. Like we don't want to be, oh, okay, first I am going to take out my toothbrush and then I'm going to put the toothpaste on. It just flows as one, right? So that's kind of the goal. So just trying to be as consistent as possible will help your children learn those routines and just make it more automatic and easy to do for them. But at the same time, we also want things to be a little bit flexible so that our kids don't become really tied to certain schedules and really rigid in needing to follow them exactly, right? So you can try to change up small things to try to make them a little bit more flexible. So say, even around the dinner table, if everybody has a certain spot they sit at every day, kind of changing that up from time to time. Or if in the morning one child always sets up the table for breakfast, and the other child is always responsible for cleaning the room, maybe changing those things up, right? But it's important that you warn your children in advance for any possible changes, just to allow them some time to kind of adjust and cope with whatever might be coming up. And also, if you have schedules, then updating those schedules with any changes is also. So here are just a few kind of takeaways from this section. So just first, yeah, when you're starting new routines, start with something familiar, make the routines interactive. If they're using objects maybe that they don't have terminology for, just labeling as naming those things as much as possible, giving your children choice, incorporating breaks, using motivators, and being consistent but flexible. Those will all be important in developing your routines. So now we thought we would take a short mindfulness break. So mindfulness is just a method where you kind of focus on the present. So you aren't thinking about whatever has happened in your day already. You're not worrying about all the millions of things you have to do after this presentation is over. You're really focused on the present. In order to just help you clear your mind and give everyone a sense of calm. So we thought this would be a nice opportunity to do that just kind of midway through our presentation. Sorry, I hope my water drinking didn't.
No problem. Okay, so, and we're back. So I'll get you all to focus back again. Come back. Now that you've emptied your mind, we're going to fill it again. Okay. So obviously, a lot of you have got children that are in the virtual, and somebody's moving the mouse. Is that someone moving the mouse? Okay, just making sure. So a lot of you have students in, your children are in the virtual school. And that's why we would like to focus the next piece, almost the last piece, really, the second half of our presentation on that piece. Because now most of us are in the virtual world. Today's presentation is in that way. And those of you that have been going to this conference for a few years will know that this is brand new. We used to do it in person. So it's just as important for you to establish routines for your children in the virtual world as it is for you when they are going to school in person. So we'd like to talk to you about a few tools that you can use to get this going. We thought we'd start on a light note, a great cartoon that Afshan found for us. And a lot of us are working as well, right? We're working parents. It's very different when you were in person at work and your child was at school, and now all of you are trying to find a space at home to work and to fulfill whatever your obligations are. So in this cartoon, the mum says, okay, so you have everything you need, right? You'll be busy working on that project? And the child says, yes. And mum's feeling great. She says, this is perfect. I finally have a stretch of quiet time. Oh, what a wonderful treat to be able to work without any interrupt. I'm done. I'm sure there are many, many, many of you, as Afshan is probably about to tell us, that have got this. And I just, before I came on, was trying to be a gently yelling parent, telling people to kind of, keep out of the way because, I've got stuff to do right now. But yeah, you, Afshan, have had that as well, haven't you?
Oh, literally, like I think I could have made this cartoon myself. I've lived it. I had to quickly turn the camera off, help my son with some assignment, and then turn it back on during a meeting recently. So yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen the celebrities and the news anchors, with their kids or pets popping into the picture. So as we go through the tools, we want you to consider things about your children that will help you choose the right tool to incorporate within your routine. So anything that we tell you now, you should think about these factors that I'm about to talk about before using those tools. When you choose the tools, you'll have to think about whether it's appropriate for the age of your child. A lot of you have elementary school children, so most of these can be used with them. But for those of you that have children that are in secondary school or children who have more complex needs, you're going to have to think about certain tools. And all the tools that we have chosen will suit all of those levels, depending on that. Your child might have a particular personal interest that lends itself better. Like if your kid's really into technology, we will show you some of the tools that you can use for that. We've talked about sensory needs, how your child interacts with the world in that way. And we'll even mention some things that you can do that will help them with that. What are their physical abilities? Are there anything that you'd be suggesting that your child wouldn't be able to do because they can't manipulate it properly? And obviously making the visual as accessible as possible, not just making a really nice fancy routine or schedule or to-do list and then nobody can find it. It should be somewhere where everyone can see. And as I think I mentioned before, for mine, it was usually stuck to a fridge with a magnet because he likes food. So every time he went in to get a drink or whatever, he could see, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this next. It just happened to be the place that he would find it useful. But you might find somewhere else. It might be near their mobile or their technology or their games or whatever it is, but just ensure that it's around for them to use, okay? And in terms of the actual tools, we can see from what we're about to say, what you can use to start the routines, to get them going. What are the principles that you would use to do that, as well as the actual tangible items that you could use to keep it going, okay? So one of the first things you've got to do is to see if you can get your child to be more involved in the decision-making process. They're much more likely to buy in. And by doing that, you might say to your child that here are the things that you have to get done today. Do you have any other ideas of what else we need to do? And having them put that in. And it might be that even though they're not giving you, say, the academic stuff they have to do on virtual, maybe there's something else that they're going to tell you, Mum, I'd like to have a break at this time, or I find that that helps me, or you're going to help them come up with those ideas, or this is when I'd like to do a little bit of playtime. Ashan mentioned before about being flexible, and that really will involve you trying to help your child be flexible as well, to develop that skill where they're not too rigid, because there may be a time when the teacher's away, or their technology's not working, or you know that there's going to be a change coming up. So it's good to give them a heads up. All of us like heads up. You know, we don't usually like to spring something on us, right? Yeah. And as Ashan said before, giving them choices about their routine will also be a part of it as well. Like, would you like to do your break now? So remember, she talked about when, or do you want to do it after this particular task? Or it might be, do you want to do, if it's homework or a deadline or something that's recorded, like that asynchronous piece of learning, it might be that you say, well, do you want to do this task first or this task next? You know, that sort of thing, to put into the routine and help them sort of plan ahead. And also preparation is key, right? We all have that. You would have maybe done a little bit of organization to help you get on today to listen to us and have us tell you everything that you need. So for your students, for your children, it's the same thing. You should help them to have all the equipment, the materials they need, pencils, erasers, anything they need to get going. And something as simple as charging your device the night before, or having them charge their own devices, help them take that responsibility as well. Don't keep doing it for them. Show them how they can do that so that they're ready for the next day. Even check at break times to see if they need to recharge it. How many of us have done that even with our own devices and realized
absolutely, yeah.
done that? And doing things like logging on a few minutes early. Some of you may have only just recently switched to virtual. So, you know, these are things that you might have to get used to. Supposing your Wi-Fi is wonky. So it's good to kind of go on a little bit early, have them do that. And even the night before, it could be something as simple as looking at that routine, that schedule the next day. As Ashan said before, it takes you a while to get used to it. And I do believe when I was younger and had less cobwebs in my head as a kid, I could usually remember a lot of what I had to do, but certainly right now, I need a schedule. I need to know what it is that I need exactly.
It's really helpful if not even just the next day, but if I have an idea of what's happening during my week.
That's right. And obviously I haven't made sure that my mouse is not going all over the place. Also, clear expectations. We're showing you some visuals here that we hope to provide through some mechanism afterwards, but making sure that the goals and expectations for the day are clear. Even something as simple as knowing when I can check back in with you as my parent, right? So making a deal with your child as to when. Remember the cartoon at the beginning? She's not.
That visual would have helped me too.
So the mum has finished, the child still wants to come and bother mum when they're finished. So it may be even you having backups for things that you might need, but also telling the child, you know, how they can signal you maybe when something is done, because that will be part of their routine as well. They'll get used to doing that, you know, to sort of having that sort of thing. So even going through that, but you can Google online just any kind of social script or some kind of visual for how to help your child when you're working home, things like that, that will give them the expectations, okay? Because children may not realize how resilient they really are, and that this will help their independent skills as well. So this is still part of having things connected with establishing routines. Even a workspace, many of us
This
are.
has been hard in my house. I know I keep getting kicked out of spaces. So.
Yeah. So I was giggling with Jocelyn the other day, because Jocelyn said, "Whoa, are you in a different office, Afshan?" And that's because she's getting kicked out, whereas I choose to move around my abode anyway. The thought of staying in the same spot all day is not great. And I know when I was younger, I was more like the child in the top right-hand corner. I love to lie on my tummy and do work. But even with that, even if it's not a very formal space, it's good to have the space be organized, right? So you could
absolutely.
One of those reusable grocery bags, or an old box or something, even a shoe box if it's big enough.
Or a laundry basket, and put everything in there, and then that can be graded around to places in the house.
That's right. And you could make that part of the routine, that they have all of their equipment in that, and it's in a certain spot every day at the beginning of the day and a certain spot at the end of the day. And that will be their portable workspace. But it may also be that, like some of the kids in this picture, that there is a spot where they can work all the time. But it's just a way to kind of keep that routine going by establishing where they're going to work and how they're going to work and with what they are going to work. Also minimizing distractions. Try to keep the space as noise-free as possible. And if that's not possible, then a lot of us are wearing headphones anyway. And I've seen some of you, as you were coming on today, you're wearing headphones too. Visual distractions as well. The less distractions you're going to have, the better it's going to be focused. Even something like a curtain or some kind of cardboard piece, Bristol board, you can get that from the dollar store, just to kind of make it like a study corral or carousel around your child, so they don't have to be distracted. Maybe you've got more than one child and the dining table is the place where you're all going to be. It may be
facing the wall even, right?
Yeah,
just
facing the wall.
Face the wall.
On that point about the cardboard, what I was going to say is you can have more than one child at the table with different cardboard around, and they act almost like a circle. And then you can consider the facing to the wall, or not having, outside influences there as well, and have that especially during lesson times. So also it's important for you to check in with your child or teacher, just to make sure their work is getting done, reviewing their assignments, their test deadlines, and keep the boundaries the same as you would do if it was in person. You wouldn't just walk into a child's class in the middle of their lesson. So you wouldn't do that online either. Review some online safety. The TDSB parent site does have online safety rules, so you can click in and have a look at that. They always have a search bar. You can do it that way.
But and also, different teachers have different expectations too, right, Yvonne? Some teachers like to have the camera on, some don't.
Yeah, so as I was about to say,
sorry.
Okay, we're still organizing ourselves. So what I was going to say is some teachers are actually, they have a certain type of etiquette that they would like, online etiquette that they would like. Some teachers like kids to raise their hands in the camera, some like to raise their hands in other ways. Also, different teachers are using different online platforms which have different capabilities around things like hand raising, cameras, chat boxes, this, that, and the other. So check in. We could mention all the different possibilities about what each teacher is going to do, but have them check in with them to see what that is, but just not in the middle of the child's lesson. That would be a good thing. And so also just keeping the lines of communication open with your teachers is also important. Why not schedule it in your routine? Maybe there's one day a week that on Mondays or Fridays or hump day, Wednesday, you're going to check in with your child's teacher just to see what's going on. See if there's any updates for the platform that the student's using. And if you do, all teachers have a specific type of board email that you can use, or the principal that's in charge of the virtual school can also help you, and we'll provide you with some information about that as well. And I am speaking very fast just because we don't have
Yeah.
a lot of time left.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're nearing the end of our time. So I'm going to try to speed through this as quickly as I can. But we do have a whole host of visual tools that can help organize your routines. So we have visual schedules that can be helpful. If your children are younger or maybe have more complex needs, you can organize your schedule using actual objects or physical objects. Or you could even use photos or pictures of your children doing whatever it is that they need to do. Or if they're a little bit older, maybe using some symbols along with text. And if they're even older, then maybe making it even more text-based. So you can maybe have some visuals if they like them and would want them on there, but it's not necessary, right? It could just be a simple to-do list that either they write themselves or you write for them and they're checking things off. I know that I use it all the time. So
don't we love when things are checked off? It's just the best thing in the world.
It's such a good feeling. Yeah.
Accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also electronic schedules. So either, the calendar app in the tablets that they might have, or if you have a phone or your children have phones, just having those deadlines and things on there. Electronic organizers. So there's things like Google Keep app, Microsoft Lists, the Notes app on your phones where you can just write out lists and even color code things. You can check things off as you're done. And Yvonne mentioned that she used Google Keep with her son. So she was actually able to share information with her son, especially to kind of get him going with the list. And then he kind of took over as he grew older. And I really love to use this app myself. It just helps me keep my work schedule and work things organized. So it really just helps you kind of chunk what you need to do and kind of lists out what you need to do. We also have some time and deadline trackers that you might want to use, right? So things like the visual timer while they're working on a task to let them know how much time is left. It's both visual, but then it can ping at the end, so it gives you an auditory cue as well. As well as
like dogs, if you like dogs, they do barking dog sounds. So there's lots of
cool. And then there's also like alarms and notifications that you can have on your devices, right? That will just signal to let you know, okay, it's time to get this done at this time.
Yeah, and just to, we did mention it briefly before, but in this world of ours where you're on screen a lot, it's very important to schedule in physical and mental health activities because we are living in such a virtual world.
Absolutely.
So what we need to do what you should really do is get your kids moving. It could be within the house. You could be running up and down the stairs, or in your apartment running around to different rooms.
Yeah. My sister has her kids going, so even during the school day, whenever there's recess or lunch, she sends them out to go play. So just like a regular school day at school.
Yeah, just because they're in the virtual world doesn't mean that they can't do that, because this will help them with their physical health, but it will also help them with their mental health. We've put the Go Noodle piece. I encourage you to go and Google that. They have videos on their website, but also through YouTube as well, and Vimeo. And they have both alerting activities that help you get you going, but they also have calming activities that can help you de-stress or feel a little more calm or at peace with whatever else is going on. So I encourage you to do that. Sleep is also an extremely important piece for your physical.
And I think we're all sleep deprived.
Very much so, but we're on screens all the time. So very important for you to not have screen to reduce or get rid of screen time at least, I would say, an hour before bed, but if they're fighting with you, even half an hour. The blue light from anything that's on in the room, even if it's just plugged in, can also interfere with a proper sleep. Playing calming music, doing the mindfulness activity like what we did before and whizzing through. But just to emphasize, sleep is the most important piece. We've talked about unplugging. It is really important, and I do need to get this piece across to you because we have science and research to back us up that for school-age children that are 13 years and younger, if they are just staring and sitting in front of the screen without moving, it shouldn't exceed more than 2 hours in any way, shape, or form. And also, even though there's no specific number for teenagers, media should still be limited because the research has shown that piece as well. And it is really important, even just after school finishes, before they run on to their technology for pleasure, that they have a break once they've unplugged from school, that they actually literally unplug or turn things off just for a little while. Yeah. And hobbies and interests are another great thing to do. I forgot to say earlier, my son, he took up photography as well as a sort of hobby, even with his phone and with a separate camera too. He's done that, and he's also hooking into cooking a little bit more and gardening, believe it or not. He's actually starting to get out and do a little bit with that. But it actually will help them to focus, helps them academically, it helps them in many other ways in terms of what they need. Now, I know they're already connecting with their fellow classmates and whatever, maybe online through the teacher, but they also need somewhere they've sort of instigated or they're responding to somebody else doing that for them in a more casual and social way. So obviously they can connect with their phone, they can do video calls, they can even do, under your supervision for younger students, playing online board games with their friends, or distanced activities which are being encouraged. So I know I'm trying to see if I can layer up with a couple of winter coats so I can see my friends a little bit more outside right now and putting scarves on because I'm always cold. But yes, that's a way to do it. So I'll just think about, as we're going along, how your family has been staying connected with others. And even doing the focusing on positives and growth. This is a kind of learning, this type of learning, the virtual learning, is new for everybody. The teachers are new at it as well. So we all have to be patient. There are going to be challenges along the way, but we can learn from the challenges, right? And then we keep going on. So a growth mindset, as we are mentioning that now, it's a set of beliefs, a set of principles that our abilities can improve with effort versus just staying the same all the time. And don't have a fixed mindset if you can, but have a growth mindset, that power of yet, that even though it's not happening right now, the more we keep doing it, the more we are going to develop our positive habits and positive routines. As Afshan mentioned as well, it takes a while to get used to a routine. And so think of this, have this in mind. And even the child that's not connecting very well virtually, and I don't mean connecting physically, but I mean connecting in that sense that they are not able to learn in the way that they thought they would be able to learn virtually. It's very different than the usual technology. So having that growth mindset, encouraging them that even though they can't do it now, the more they keep at it, the better they are most likely to get.
Yeah, and I've actually been using that with my own son because he feels really negative about math, and just trying to develop some of that growth mindset around math. But that's good. We've been working on, and I've seen a lot of growth in that area. So I'm really happy.
Yeah. And while Asha's been talking, I hope you were able to have a quick glimpse of this bigger section around establishing routines in a virtual world, just that you're prepared. There are good expectations, the workspace is considered, using visual text, electronic supports, definitely keep in contact with your teacher, and keep that physical and mental health piece as well. Put that in the schedule, the routine. Even yourself, it's a very fast-paced world right now, anyway, even without the pandemic. And so sort of making sure you have that time, even for yourself as a parent. The analogy of the airline where you are told to put on your mask first before the child, that is a huge piece. Please put some of this into your own schedule too. All right, we're sorry, we've had a lot of info to tell you, and
Yeah.
a little bit more. So go ahead, Jocelyn, take it away for us.
Thank you, Yvonne and Afshan. I know we could go on about this topic for hours on end for sure, but I'm just going to run one last poll. And after we've done, we've had the presentation with a lot of information. We're just curious as to whether there's one thing that you might try using with your children with this presentation, you know, whether you start with a familiar routine, make the routine interactive, provide some choices, incorporate breaks, use to-do lists, alarms, using visual, text-based, or electronic schedules, rewards or motivators, involving children in your decisions and using buy-in, using consistency. So if you all can just take a moment to go through that and vote in the poll, that would be great. And that way we can get an idea of what sort of strategies you found resonated with you the best. Now, as people are answering, I'm also going to just mention we've had a couple of questions along the way. So Pearl did mention a question. She had mentioned how her daughter is in grade 8 virtual school, and based on the guidelines and the hours of screen time, her daughter is currently engaging in 255 minutes, I believe, online on the screen, and then 58 minutes of independent learning. And she's concerned about how much the screen time is. You know, I did clarify with her that the American Academy of Pediatrics has provided these recommendations more so as recreational screen time, understanding that we're
That's
in
right. It's more the fun time when they're just doing it themselves. School time, that's not such a worry. What you could do though is the independent learning time. Maybe you space that out a little bit to ensure they do get a break, or some sort of mental health break, or a physical break, or a nutrition break, you know, around that time.
Pearl, if you'd like to join in at any point, please feel free.
No, that's okay. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thanks, Pearl. So as per the poll results, as you can see, providing choice seemed to be a very useful strategy that will be implemented, which is great. And then buy-in also. But you know, what's really nice is that it seems that all the different strategies did very much so touch on someone in the talk, which is great. So we're going to close that down. There was another question as well that was posed by Chong Lee. And she was just mentioning how she has a teenage boy who's 15, and he seems to have adjusted to some bad routines. And she's just mentioned how she feels that the older the child is, the harder it's to help him change his habits. And oftentimes he forgets when he's working on technology, and often goes to bed late. So she was curious as to whether there were any suggestions that we had.
Yeah, that can definitely be an issue for older children. And I know that even with my own son, we were having some issues around use of technology. He would continue on even through like some really late into the night on his devices. And so my husband actually set up some sort of Wi-Fi timer thing where it shuts down the Wi-Fi. I think at around, right now we have it set to like 10:30, 11-ish. And so now he's kind of blocked from Wi-Fi after that time. And so he, in a way, is kind of forced to go to bed, right? So yeah, for sure, with older kids, it can definitely be an issue with the use of devices interfering with their routines. But there are certain ways you can kind of try to get around that still.
Chongli, I've invited you to unmute should you wish to ask any more questions about that. I know she had mentioned that he seems to be an expert in technology, so.
And we're only 2 minutes from the actual end. I feel really bad that we're not going to get to do the last 15-minute question part, but I'll let Afshan just give you some extra information, and then we have to close.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just really sorry that we kind of ran out of time here, but we did kind of gather together some helpful information about virtual school for you. So the TDSB website already has this information, but instead of you having to kind of go on and search for it all, we just put together some contact information for principals who, are assigned to each LC, what the deadlines are for this switching between learning models, which also may not be accurate depending on what happens, because there are lots of changes that are taking place. So, but hopefully it kind of gives you some idea of information. And we also have a sign up for the resources that we've kind of put together for you. So there's a couple different ways we're going to try to get this information out to you. So if you're comfortable, you can just sign up on our document with your name and your email address, and then we can try to mail those resources out to you. Or I think there was another way where they were going to post this video on the TDSB website and possibly link to our resources there as well. But thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know if anyone has, maybe we could take one or two more questions, and then we'll probably have to end it because we are at our time limit at this point.
And part of that is that the next presentation has to start soon. However, I think we would be forgiven for a good couple of minutes right now.
Yeah.
So,
one of the questions that was posed was just from HL Home that the grade 10 daughter gets up for in-school classes, but has trouble getting her up for at-home learning. And what can I do?
So I think some of the, and you can chip in, Afshan, well, we talked about motivators. Trying to see if you can do start small, maybe with something that she actually likes to do that's independent maybe, but start small, and maybe having breaks in the middle of that independence work. So it's like, just try this for the next 10 minutes, and you can have 2 seconds, and then you start stretching the break out more and more. So it's 20 minutes, maybe in 30 minutes. Also, scheduling in, doing the first then is also another way to sort of get it going. And that would hook into the motivator, right? So you find out what she really likes to do, and then doing that first then, but the first might not be the whole entire task. If she's really, resisting, perhaps it's the first 10 minutes of the task, or out of 10 questions, she has to do the first 2 to get a little bit of what she wants, and then carry on with another couple and another couple until she does it.
I just wanted to add that it's possible that this could be an opportunity for like natural consequences to also kind of teach her that, okay, well, if I don't work during that block of time, then I'm going to be working maybe when I could be doing something else fun, right? So maybe my family's going out to, I don't know, have dinner on a patio, hopefully if the weather's warm, whatever it is, but I'm stuck at home working because I didn't wake up in time to do my work, right? So that could be one way
and also,
of using natural consequences.
Yeah, and the buy-in, right? Have her come up with the schedule with you as well, so she knows that she's actually set herself those expectations, and checking in with the teacher too, just to see if there's another way. Perhaps there's another way for your daughter maybe to even demonstrate her knowledge. Perhaps, there's something about this specific task or those tasks that it's not necessarily that she's finding it difficult. It's just maybe she wants to or could demonstrate her knowledge in a different way.
Another thing I was going to suggest also is if you want to try to integrate a routine before she's supposed to get up for at-home learning, so that every morning she has to engage in this activity, she has to get up earlier, and she has to complete this task before doing the at-home learning. So that way she's up and ready for the day before her at-home learning even starts.
Yeah, great. Maybe we've got time for one, possibly two more. We'll see.
Sure. Yeah. So Elise did mention that her daughter has memory issues and that she forgets when it comes to chores. I did suggest using natural consequences, visual, text-based, or electronic reminders to help them remember and
Yeah.
stay on track. Just curious if the two of you had other suggestions as well.
I know what I did with my kids is they had their names if you've got more than one child, but we also incorporated ourselves my husband and I incorporated ourselves in the chores list. So my kids seemed to get a kick out of that, even when they were older, as to whose sort of turn it was to do that. So it may be that the chores are divvied up between people and rotated.
Mm-hmm. And if she truly does have some memory issues, maybe
that's different.
initial some reminders, and like you said, some text or visual reminders as well could be helpful, right? Because I know that for myself, I have a hard time remembering things as I go older. So having that to-do list or whatever is really helpful.
I think as well the figuring out even the way she connects with the world as well might help her to remember if it's a memory, because you were doing this, Jocelyn, so I thought you meant that it was a teenagey forget, but do you mean that there are bona fide memory issues? Is that what Mum's?
No, I did this because that's what Elise wrote. Elise wrote
okay. So Elise, I don't know if you can quickly tell us if you meant that in a tongue-in-cheek teenage way, or you actually mean she does have memory issues.
So she does have memory issues.
Okay.
She has
So yeah,
I'd say to her, you never forget to go game. Like she'll never forget to go gaming.
Right.
She never forgets to do the things she wants to do, but to change the cat litter, we used to rotate it with her sister, and I gave it to her to do every night as a way to have a routine, so she wouldn't forget. But it's amazingly, she still forgets, but she's never forgetting to game.
Right.
Now putting that in an actual schedule, like putting it in the routine so it's official, does a couple of things. It reminds her, obviously, it's a visual reminder. The alert that Afshan talked about as well, with the something could go off if she has a phone, I'm not sure, but if she had a phone, that could be just something that's incorporated in that, or even your own shared reminder. Could also be a way to, that's what I did with my son. I made a Google Keep sheet, and then I just shared it with him, and then it's like both of us looking at the same file in a cloud, and I could write little messages, update it, and I eventually just phased myself out so that he could just take it over, but chores were included in that as well.
And it is harder, I think, to remember things that you don't want to do as much. Like you remember the things that have more of an emotional connection, right? So something that you really enjoy, or something maybe you're fearful of, but if something routine and kind of boring, then maybe it's easier to forget something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that suggestion also about using some type of electronic reminder might work for your daughter, at least, just because you had mentioned how she's very interested in gaming. So let's use that platform as an advantage to incentivize and remind her on something.
Yeah, we've talked about that. And I said, just put a reminder on your phone. And she's like, I just ignore my reminders.
So that's why if you share one, that way, so for instance, it could be something as simple as you've put it in your phone, just like you do your normal, but there's usually a little button in your phone somewhere. I have an iPhone, but others that I know you can do it on Android as well, and you can share that reminder or that calendar thing item with someone else as well, and eventually you could phase out your reminding all the time, because obviously she won't get that. But I also think some sort of motivator, like we're all trying to come up with different things for you based on our work professionally, but also our work as parents and wives. Let's just say that too, because I'm not trying to be biased, but I know that sometimes they need reminders as well.
And that's
So
also too, Elise, maybe again providing that choice and getting her to buy into things by giving her options to choose from. There may be some chores that are, I know they're chores, so they're not supposed to be exciting, but there may be certain chores that she likes to do more than others. And then maybe part of that discussion could be that these are your options and these are your chores. You've got to choose one of them. So choose
And
whichever
then
you like.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
certainly done that, and the cat litter was the preferred
Mm.
chore.
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's, as you said, more about the reminders,
Yes.
the
I do
motivation
think,
as well.
yeah. I do think that for some kids, you do need to scaffold at learning. So you would have to really be involved at first, like Yvonne was saying, with her son with the Google Keep, and then phase yourself out. But some kids do need that intensive kind of reminders.
It's almost like hand over hand, but you're doing it almost virtually, I guess, until she kind of gets it. But along the way, there could be some praises, or even like you said before,
For trying, yeah.
Even a little chart on the or just your emoji being sent back or something to sort of list how many she got. And maybe if she gets 10 emojis in a week or 10 tokens, she gets and I'm just kidding, in tongue in cheek, a gift certificate to buy more games online. Just kidding. I'm not encouraging that, but you know, something like that. Any more questions, Jocelyn?
Nothing that's popped up. I think this might be a good time to transition out, since I think there's 5 minutes left before the next session starts.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Very much so. Thank you all for joining us. And then enjoy your next sessions if you have anything else that you're registered for today or tomorrow. And again, thank you, Afshan and Yvonne, for that great presentation.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.